Hey Canucks fans, can Jacob Markstrom have an even better season than he did last year? I'm Clay Emo, I'm at Canuck Clay on Twitter, I'm at Clayton Emo on Instagram, I'm the founder of the GLCPC, the Good Looking Canucks Positivity Club, and this is my Canucks take, all in one take. It's Clay's Canucks commentary for Tuesday, August the 13th. I want to give a thank you and a shout out to Darren Walsh of Walsh Pavers for once again sponsoring this video. The link to his website is down below in the description. Let's talk about Jacob Markstrom. And I'm inspired today by Harmon Dial's latest article for The Athletic. Harmon is doing a really good job crushing it for The Athletic in the past couple of weeks since he's come on full time. And this morning he talked about Jacob Markstrom. He looked at Jacob Markstrom's season last season, his really, really good season, his basically breakout season. And he asked basically the question of, can Jacob Markstrom sustain this high level of play going forward? And I want to talk about what Harmon said and then even take it one step further and look at the contract implications, the implications for the future of this Vancouver Canucks team. So we've been talking a lot about the forwards, not a lot of it, that doesn't make sense. We've been talking a lot about the forwards with JT Miller, Michael Furlan, how our top six is better than it's been in the last few years. We've been talking a lot about the D. I talked about them yesterday or 2 days ago when I try to predict D pairings, especially who's going to play with Quinn Hughes, and how much the Ds, how much improved they are compared to October 2019, what's going to happen in 2 months compared to what they were in October of 2018 to start last season. So the one constant is the goaltending, in that there's only two guys that you can change, really, and the Canucks didn't change either of them, Jacob Markstrom or Thatcher Demko. But not only the constant in the players that they have, but we need them to be constant. We need them to play as well as they did last season, especially with the improvements up front, the improvements on the blue line, with solid goaltending, consistent goaltending, a goaltending, that doesn't drop off. The Canucks should look to push for a playoff spot. And that's really what Harmon looked at in his article. And he, as always, he did a really good job of using statistical analysis. Half the stuff I don't understand, but he uses graphs and pictures, which help me understand. In all seriousness, he did a great job of combining eye test stuff with, analytics, of course, and then talking to goaltending experts. And this is what Harmon came up with, and I agree with everything. I should. He's boy genius, and I'm not man genius, so I agree with everything that Harmon said. This is what he said. Jacob Markstrom last season had truly a breakout season, on the cusp of top 5 with regards to certain metrics and certain stats, definitely a top 10 goaltender. Yes, Jacob Markstrom's save percentage of .912 was the exact same as the previous season, 2017-2018. But Harmon looked at the difficulty of shots, the quality of shots he was facing, and it was a lot tougher last season than it was 2 seasons ago. So that .912 save percentage was probably, it was a tougher .912 to obtain. Basically, he played better last year than he did 2 seasons ago. Then he looked at his age. Markstrom turned 29. He's going to be turning 30 in January. And a lot of Harmon's article was looking at other goaltenders of that age and how well they do being that age and coming off a so-called breakout year. And Harmon's conclusion is good. It's because of the improved D, any drop-off, even a slight drop-off in Markstrom's play himself individually, should be compensated even more by the improvement on the blue line. So his final conclusion really is that Jacob Markstrom should be able to do everything that he did last year, regardless of what the statistical numbers turn out to be, his save percentage, his goals against, all those things. His overall play should be just as good. And like I said, even if there's a tiny bit of drop-off, it will be compensated for, it will be made up for by the improvement on the blue line. A full season of Quinn Hughes, Tyler Myers, and Jordy Ben over guys like Goodbranson, Pouliot, and Del Zotto, guys we had last season. And then Harmon did a really good job of talking to goalie experts, including Kevin Woodley from In Goal Magazine, and they talked about why Markstrom was so much better last year. And not only was it the mental game, of course, and we saw that, the maturity in the post-game interviews and the press conferences, but in his style, they talked about him having a more narrow, upright stance. But that doesn't mean he was less mobile. In fact, he was better getting from post to post. He was better at getting that first shot. He was better at tracking pucks. And it was actually a lot of similar things that my cousin Dusty talked to me about last month when I interviewed him before he made his way to China for the KHL. And Dusty and Kevin, I know they know each other quite well. So it makes sense, both as goalie coaches, as goalie experts, that they were saying a lot of the same similar things. More efficient movement, a better posture, better stance, and able to track the puck better, able to move from post to post better. All those things made Markstrom a much better goalie. So Harmon's final conclusion, as I mentioned, is that Markstrom should be able to continue his strong play. He talked about over 50% of goalies around his age coming off on a breakout year still have basically an average to above average showing. So we're not worried about Markstrom's drop off that way. At least we shouldn't be, given the guy, his comparables, and the fact that Markstrom has a better blue line playing in front of him. So go check out Harmon's article. You can see the actual formal language and actual statistical language he uses, not just kind of me rambling on for 4 minutes there. But check it out. I'll link the article below. You got to subscribe to the Athletic, of course, but I'm sure that most of you do already. So here's the implications. Markstrom is in the last year of his contract. He will be a UFA on July the 1st. It's a pretty sweet contract when you think about it. He's paying $3.66 million a year, so $3 2/3 million, and this is the last year of his contract. So, and he's, like I said, he's turning 30 years old in January. You have Thatcher Demko, who's 24 years old. He'll be turning 24 in December. Demko on a very good $1 million contract, basically 1.05, and that's for 2 more years, and then he'll still be an RFA. So the Canucks are getting, hopefully, if they get really good goaltending this season, they'll get it for under $5 million combined. 3.666666 for Markstrom and 1.05 for Demko. And then you have waiting in the wings, Michael DiPietro. He's 20 years old, so you can see how Demko's kind of right in the middle. You got a 29-year-old, you got a 24-year-old, and then a 20-year-old, all in Michael DiPietro waiting to make his impact as well. Let's not talk about DiPietro today. We got a lot of time. He's only 20. Let's talk about Thatcher Demko, 24, turning 24 in December. Only had 9 games last season. Obviously, the Canucks will want to get him up to 20, 25, somewhere between 20 and 30 games for next season, at least 1/3 of the games. Because, like I said, Jacob Markstrom is a UFA at the end of the season. So it's kind of fascinating when you think about it, because he's going to be owed a raise. I won't say it's going to be a massive raise, because we don't see goaltenders making a lot of money. I think we've seen in the past few years that, I don't want to say goaltending on a budget, but goaltenders aren't going to pull in the same kind of money that forwards make, for obvious reasons. And you're starting to see that you need 2 goalies, and you can't spend a bunch of money on 2 goalies. So teams are getting very careful with how much they pay goaltenders. So Markstrom, though, will be in line for a raise over his $3 2/3 million salary. But what will the cost be, and what sort of term will he be looking for if he looks for an extension for the Vancouver Canucks, with the Vancouver Canucks? And what's really fascinating is where the Canucks will be in the playoff race. If they are right in the thick of a playoff hunt, they're in a spot or they're fighting for a spot, you think they'll want to keep Jacob Markstrom for that playoff run, not only to make the playoffs by the end of the season, by the start of April, but indeed for the playoffs themselves, right, to play, because Thatcher Demko is obviously not experienced enough yet. So I think the deeper the Canucks are in the playoff hunt, the playoff fight, the more chance the Canucks will... Actually, I don't even, now that I think about it, they might not even extend Jacob Markstrom, but they might just keep him. They might not trade him, I guess is a better way of putting it. They might keep him and then try and negotiate a contract with them prior to or after July 1st, much like they did with Alex Edler. So that's one way they could go. Of course, the risk to that is if you don't sign him to an extension before July 1st, or you don't trade him and you keep him for that playoff run, we could have a Dan Hamhuis or a Radim Verbata situation where they try and sign him, they don't trade him, it doesn't work out, and then they basically walk away for nothing. And we know that doesn't look good on anyone. So that's if the Canucks are in a playoff hunt. If the Canucks are not in the playoff hunt, they are too far out, then I'd say they'd be more apt to trading Jacob Markstrom. Trade him to a playoff contender, maybe as a solid backup or insurance until the end of the contract, and then Jacob Markstrom can go sign wherever he wants. And that would be a likely scenario, perhaps, is if, like I said, if the Canucks are not in the playoff run, is you trade Jacob Markstrom, you can get some assets for him, I'm sure, whether that's a late first rounder or early second rounder or a late round pick plus a prospect, whatever it may be, you will be able to get something for Jacob Markstrom for sure at the trade deadline, especially if he has a really, really good season. But then will the Canucks be able to walk away from him because Jacob Markstrom's having a good season, or will the Canucks do everything in their power to keep him despite maybe a poor season? Hopefully not, but if they're not making the playoffs, a poor season, and then look to try and extend him. And then you got to look at for how long and for how much, because you have Thatcher Demko waiting in the wings. And I've talked about this ad nauseum plenty of times, but I've heard from people inside the organization that they have Luongo type hopes for Thatcher Demko. And it's not too late. He's, like I said, he's only turning 24 years old by the end of this year. So he's still young, and we know that goalies hit their prime 26, 27, 28. And Markstrom, like I said, 29, turning 30. Markstrom hit his prime when he was 29 years old. So all these things to think about. I think when it comes to Jacob Markstrom's future at the Vancouver Canucks, fair or not, I think a lot of it's going to have to do with where the Canucks are come February. Are they pushing for a playoff spot? And like I said, if they are pushing for a playoff spot, they're going to keep Jacob Markstrom because they need him for the playoffs, and then they're going to likely try and re-sign him by July 1st or at the July 1st to keep him from going to free agency. If the Canucks are not in a playoff spot come the end of February by the trade deadline, then I look to see the Canucks at least entertain trading him for assets that will help them for a future playoff run. And then whatever team Markstrom goes to, then they can worry about trying to sign him. And we can use Alex Edler's situation this year. He ended up coming back for 2 years, $6 million. You can use the Hamhuis for that situation where they walked away July 1st. There's a lot of comparables, not necessarily goalies, but there's a lot of comparables to the type of situations that can happen. But I think we can all agree it's going to be a very fascinating, very interesting situation to watch as the Canucks progress through the season. So check out Harmons' article, excellent article on Jacob Markstrom, his statistical analysis, and whether or not he can retain his good playing, keep it up for this season. And then, of course, I wanted to add on to that the ramifications of Jacob Markstrom's contract and his UFA status at the end of the season. So Canucks fans, leave a comment below. I'd love to know what you think. What do you think is going to happen? Do you agree with Harmons' article that Jacob Markstrom should be able to keep up his good play from last season? Do you agree with me that our D and Harmon, that our D is improved? Well, agree with Harmon. Don't worry about agreeing with me. And then, I guess, predict a little bit. Do you expect Jacob Markstrom to be in a Canucks uniform come March 2020? And do you agree with me that it really has a lot to do with where the Canucks are in the playoff hunt? Leave a comment below. I'd love to read, react, and reply. Subscribe if you like to. Like this video if you like to. Enjoy the day. God bless. And go Canucks go.